Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hi, I'm so excited to introduce my next guest. Her name is Bushra Azhar, and she is as kick-ass as she is beautiful. An absolutely extraordinary human who has created from a tiny little business. I always admired that Bushra used to create her business from literally a broom cupboard. And she has created over $5 million in sales with a list of buyers of over 8,000 buyers in less than 5 years. It is my absolute great pleasure to introduce on the $1 Million series in the Into the LightWeb podcast, the persuasion revolution expert and multi-millionaire, Bushra Azhar. Hi, it's Joanna Hunter here for Into the LightWeb, and we are in the $1 Million Lab series, and I am joined by the gorgeous and formidable Bushra Azhar. Please introduce yourself, Bushra.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. I am Bushra and I am a persuasion strategist, and I am so excited to be here.
Awesome. So I know Bushra from her sold out launch program. So that's how, and Bushra she didn't kind of subtly come onto the scene. She sort of burst onto the scene, this huge personality. And I've loved watching Bushra just literally meteoric rise, because you started about a year before I started. So I was kind of studying online business for 2 years before I actually decided to move my business online. So I was kind of like, and in the early days, I had literally no money. So I went to everything that was free, and you had some amazing free webinars and content and things. So I was like signing up for all the things. And that's how I came across you. And what I loved was the persuasion strategies and things like that, because I love, no secret that I love a mix of psychology and spirituality and all that good stuff all mixed together. And I think there is definitely a psychological aspect to all sales, really. Tell us a little bit about your kind of journey with that, of how you got to where you are today with this kind of persuasion revolution, as we call it.
So I started, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. I mean, it was, thank you, I really appreciate it. So I started back in 2014, and when I did, I was still working in my corporate job. So I was doing corporate consulting. We were based in Saudi Arabia. So it was living the expat life, but also kind of trying to manage life with small kids and, full-time corporate consulting position. So when I started the Persuasion Revolution, it's kind of like an experiment. And when I would tell people this, like, how's that possible? I was like, yeah, that is possible, because I literally started the website, started the business. I didn't tell anyone that I was starting it because, again, I was still working in consulting, and I didn't want anyone to accidentally find me on the internet. And also because back then, and I'm sure you can agree, online business just did not have the kind of legitimacy that it has now. So a lot of people looked at online business or anything that you do online, it was seen as, it was seen as something that kind of, I didn't want it to tarnish my reputation, let's put it this way. So I didn't want anyone to know, because I was doing so well in my consulting work. So it started as an experiment. I literally spent, I think, for the first about 6-7 months of my business, I think I spent in total like $72 in total on my business.
So I was zero startup business as well. I literally zero startup. And then I started investing maybe like 2-3 months into the journey.
Yeah. So $72 to put everything together. Super cheap, super shitty hosting, which kind of bit me the ass when my website crashed like 3 times. But I literally, just because in my head, it was like, okay, I'm going to try out this thing. If it works, it works. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, I'll just close it down and no one would know. So that was the whole idea. And it did really well. I mean, I was not expecting it to do so well, but it did really well. And I was like, okay, so if I make, so I started in July of 2014, and I gave myself until the December. I said, okay, if I make $10,000 until December, then, you know, this will work. If it doesn't, so it kind of like placed a bet on myself. So I was kind of doing that thing. Okay, so accidentally, not accidentally, I worked on it, but by the time December came, I had made $28,000. So I was like, okay, it's not a massive amount of money, but I just almost tripled my bet on myself. So that's awesome. So really, that's how it started, really as an experiment. Then it grew and it grew and grew, and now it's like it's a monster. It's a good monster.
It's a great monster. So I want to go back to a couple of things there, because I think these are really, really important points. I did the same thing I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years. So, and you know the journey of being an entrepreneur, it's not always easy, right? Like there's times where you're like, why am I doing this? You know, you're really, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel for motivation or something, right? And that's a normal part of being an entrepreneur. But I too gave myself this container, and I think, you know, this is something that we're doing inside the $1 Million Experiment, is giving people this year-long container. You gave yourself July to December, we're doing January to December. But I think it's so powerful because it is head down, bum up, get shit done in that container, isn't it? You really kind of like, you kind of put yourself against the wall. And I think that's a good, like, I like that. I think it's a good thing because there's no messing around then, because you're like, I got it. This is my space that I've got to make this work.
Yeah.
And I think powerful things happen inside when you give yourself those sort of time limits. So, and I love the fact that you said that you're betting on yourself, because that's what it really is. It's to go all in, chips all on the table. Betting on yourself is really powerful. And you tripled your bet. I mean, like 28,000, which is amazing. Yeah. Brand new business, not being tried, not being tested. And I love also as well, the other thing that I wanted to pick up on what you said was that you did it as an experiment. And one of the reasons why the $1 Million Experiment is $1 Million Experiment is because there is a lightness to the energy of an experiment. It's filled with a energy of curiosity, not an energy that's heavy of like, oh, I've got to make this work. You know, like it's that curious, like, oh, I wonder if I try this, how does that affect things, you know? And I think that's so powerful because we lose that as children. We have lots of that, you know, kids, especially with plug sockets, right? Like, I have 3 children, and like, I don't know how much time I spent trying to keep those children alive and away from the plug sockets, because they would look at a little thing and be like, oh, that looks like the shape of that, you know,
goes into their mouth also.
Yeah, exactly, like everything, right? And it is that curious nature. And then of course we start to grow out of that as adults, and very, very few adults go back to the idea of experimentation, to the idea of, you know, testing things, seeing things. And I love testing in business because I think that's how I've made some of my big leaps, not as big as yours, because you have created a multiple $1 million business. But tell us a little bit more about like experimentation in your business, because I see you experimenting all the time and it's great. Like, I love that.
Yeah, I love it. So I love what you said on the whole, because I don't think I've ever kind of considered my business in this context. I mean, I've talked about the fact that I started as an experiment, but you're right. When you're looking at anything as an experiment, not only are you giving yourself a limit, so so it also doesn't allow you to procrastinate as much, because you're kind of, it is a race against the clock, but in a good way. And the other thing that I love about the experiment angle is that if something isn't working, you're not supposed to follow through with it. You can actually change it. Like they say, you know, if something isn't working, just move, you're not a tree. I mean, if that's the beauty of an experiment, and that's really what happened. I remember someone asked me once, is like, how did you grow your list? And I was like, think of any list building activity, literally any list building activity out there, and I've done it. I mean, I can literally tell you right now, this one works, this one doesn't, this one works, this one doesn't. And I still am, I'm on 2,500 email lists, 2,500 email lists. And most people would just, you know, you just get on an email list and you forget about it. I literally used to open the emails. I used to look at things that they say they are working. Used to look at things that people claim were working, and I would actually try it on to see if it work or not. Because that's really, I feel, the biggest problem with the online business space is that a lot of people are literally spouting bullshit. They're just saying things that they're apparently working, but they're not. And no one is calling them out because no one is testing those ideas. So I actually did all of that. And because I was hell-bent on not spending any money on my business unless I knew it was going to come back to me, I was like super thrifty. I actually tried everything just to make sure that I can actually legitimately say, okay, this works, this doesn't work. And even now, every book I read, if there is a strategy in there, something that looks interesting to me, any video I watch, I try it out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you always learn. I mean, there is no situation where you don't walk away from that experiment without the learning. So I love the angle of experimentation that you're doing, because I think that's really what more people should do. Too many people are following a cut and dried formula. They're not experimenting enough. They're not taking enough risks. They're not trying out new things. And I think that's such a huge loss. So I love the experimentation angle. I think that's
I agree with you. I mean, it's such a huge loss. And you made a really cool point there, that with experiments, we're going in with curiosity. We're not going in with this fixed mindset, this will work. And then how many entrepreneurs have you come across? I mean, I've come across thousands where they have so attached to, but this guru told me this,
yeah,
and then they won't let go, and it's clearly not working for them.
Yeah.
And I love that you said, you know, with an experiment, there is this bit where you test to see if it works, and if it doesn't, you can let go of it. There's no pressure to say, I need to continue with this. And so this idea of you are constantly moving, constantly, you know, rolling, basically creating momentum, because you're not stuck because some guru who has got, you know, a bazillion followers said, well, this is the way that you do it. And then you're so stuck on that because, you know, it might work for that guru, but it might not work for you. And I think that's one of the things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a lot of ways, also something that looks interesting on paper may not actually translate in real life. So I'll give you an example from a recent launch. And I was, I've shared with my paid clients this, but I will share it with your people as well. So I was doing this big launch for Sold Out Launch, and we, you know, tried out a few things that we wanted to include in the launch. Obviously, every time I do a launch, I try out new strategies. And one of those strategies that looked really good on paper was using WhatsApp Messenger as a way, the WhatsApp for Business as a way to, you know, send people reminders, keep them updated on the launch progress. So I was like, okay, what's the harm? Let's try it out. And we did try it out. And we were like, okay, that was not worth it. I mean, the amount of effort that went into it, the amount of energy, just managing first of all, you can't automate it, so it has to be one-on-one. It didn't add anything to the final outcome of the launch. I didn't see anyone who's been like, oh my God, because you sent me a message on WhatsApp, I feel more close to you or something. It didn't build that bond. I didn't get, you know, we didn't get to start conversations. People were preferring to ask questions on the webinar or on the live chat instead of the WhatsApp. But if I had not tried it, if I had not experimented with it, I would always think, oh my God, that's such a brilliant idea. But now that I've tried it, and even though it's a complete waste of time, it's a great learning for me, because now I know that my people prefer asking questions or engaging in other ways, and WhatsApp doesn't really add anything to the whole thing. So again, I tried a million other things in that launch as well, but this one really stood out because I've been really wanting to experiment with it, and it didn't work. But so what? So what? That's what life is, right? That's what life is. You try out new things.
Now you've got that information for next time.
Yeah,
you know, like, you know, like, that's not my way. And I think this is what I think, you know, this is something that I try to instill on my Divine Planners, which is one of my online programs. I try to instill this, that, you know, you have to find your way. You have to find what works for you. And, you know, we give this framework in there, but the framework is loose enough for you to run it your way, but firm enough for you to get consistent results.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's so important, is that you find your way, you find your groove, and it's got to feel good to you.
Yeah.
And also as well, like, one of the things that you talked about there was the energy that you put into that. You were like, probably at that, I can tell you were probably at that fuck my life stage, you know, with it all, like the
Why did I do that to myself? Yeah, multiple times a day.
Exactly, right. And then that means, and I think there's so many people that go through that energy and then still won't let go.
Yeah.
They won't, they're like, yeah, but this is what this like super duper guru said. And it's like, but it negates the fact that you are the expert in you. And I think one of the things that's so important in the entrepreneurial journey is that you really discover who you are in that journey. And there's nothing quite like the entrepreneurial journey for
Absolutely.
revealing the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, and you get faced with your own self again and again. And I think it's so important that you listen to your own guidance, your own internal guidance. Now, some people will call that intuition. And I know that you don't come across as super woo, but you seem to be somebody who really does listen to your own inner guidance, your own inner intuition. How important is that to you?
So, such a great question. So yeah, I'm not terribly woo, but I'm also very protective of my time and my energy. And I came across this concept. I don't even know when it was, like probably 3-4 years ago, and it really stuck to me. So just to be clear, when I started my business, I was really bad at letting go, and I was the sort of person who said yes to everything. I mean, anyone would pop into my inbox and I would say yes, and that probably helped me at that stage of my business. But like 3 years ago, I think I was talking to Jill Stenton. She and her husband, they have this group called "To the 9 to 5." She's awesome, and we were chatting, and she shared this concept with me that really stuck with me. She said, we have decided that when we are going to make a decision on anything, when we are going to decide whether we should do this or whether we should do that, we decide whether that thing, that person, that event, that strategy, whether it sounds or feels heavy or whether it sounds and feels light. Because if it seems heavy, you come across that concept, that person, that invitation, that summit, invite, whatever, and you see that invitation, you're like, oh my God, FML, I don't want to do this. It is heavy, so just let go, it's fine. And anything that sounds light and exciting and energetic, and you want to do this and you feel like, oh my God, this is so exciting, and that's the thing that you go for. So this concept of light and heavy strategies, light and heavy people, light and heavy everything in life, I think really served me. And I always give her credit for this, because even though I'm not super woo, I had to unlearn a lot of those strategies where I was saying yes to everything, and even when I didn't need to. So that really, the light versus heavy concept really helped me. So when I see something, an invitation comes into my inbox or whatever, or person sends me a friends and friend invite or whatever, I like take a minute to see, okay, light or heavy, light or heavy. And if it's heavy, then I try not to go through it. Sometimes it does slip through, but I'm mindful of that energy now.
Amazing. You have literally just described one of our top tools inside. It's one of the top tools that I teach literally all of my clients, all of my audience. I call it GSP, Global Soul Positioning. Your soul will tell you your proximity to source. Source is everything that you've ever wanted. So when that heavy energy comes knocking, that is your position to source, saying you are very, very far away now. When the light energy comes happening and it's all exciting, it feels really great, that source literally saying to you, hey, you're knocking on my door right now. You're so close to the source of everything, and it's going to lead you to good places. So that tip that you're following is literally how I train people in the basics of working with their intuition, which is so exciting.
I love that.
Smiling, listening to it, because it's beautiful to hear it in someone else's words, because it's going to click for someone else maybe.
I love that.
In a different way, which I love, because sometimes we need to hear one message multiple different ways. And I think this is so exciting. I'm so excited. Bushra, you're totally using your intuition.
Good to know. I am so happy to know that.
That is really the basics. So basically what you would do after, like once you start going in, you can then start to, so what you're doing is using the basic fundamental version of it, like where everything is built on, and then the next stage is you can actually go into the energy and you can start to get feedback from the energy, so you can actually find out, like, why is it heavy, right? And so you can, if you wanted to know, but most of the time if it's heavy, it's usually a no, so like stay away. But you know, but you can go in and you can do that, and you can do it with your own decisions, like when you want to create things, you know, and you can swap out the energy, because the cool thing is we have these beautiful imaginations, which my spirit team call a glimpse into the quantum field, all existing alongside us, which I love. So I think as we grow up, we're discouraged from our imaginations. Oh, it's just in your imagination, like it's poo-pooed a little bit. And one of the things that I love about it is that, you know, it is, if we can cook it up in our imaginations, we can usually go there in reality, which I think is really cool. And you are definitely what I would call an ideas person. So you're like a little ideas factory, in fact, and I'm a bit like that too. But for anybody that isn't an ideas factory, then people like Bushra and myself are liquid gold for you. But tell us a little bit about how you manage that, because you seem to be like a person like me that has like a bazillion ideas. You could probably like don't have enough hours in the day to try and do all the things. So how do you prioritize that time?
Oh my God, that's an ongoing constant struggle, because again, there are only so many hours in a day. You can't really do it all. But I am someone who's constantly coming up with ideas. But what I've found something recently, which is interesting, is that every idea that comes to you needs an answer, but you don't have to be the answer every time. I mean, you can give that idea to someone else. So what I've started doing is I still write down all of my ideas, but I don't write them down with the intention of, okay, I'm going to do it one day. I'm very generous. I've got more generous with time, with sharing. So when we have any coaching calls, when anyone has a question, even in a random group, even those people who are not my paying clients, and I see a question that kind of sparks an idea that I've in my idea list, I will pull it out and I'll share with those people, because I feel ideas need to be honored, but they don't need to be honored by you always. I mean, sometimes you are the adapter of the idea, and sometimes you're the messenger of the idea. So I have gotten so much more generous because I'm constantly bursting with ideas. So now I am happy to pass them on. Some I keep close to myself, some that make me want to like not sleep and work all day, those I keep to myself. But a lot of the ideas, because if you just leave them and you don't pass them on or you don't do anything with them, they kind of die, poor babies. So now I'm very, very generous. I pass them on. So some days I adopt them, some days I play the messenger.
I love that. I love that. And I do practice that myself as well. And I think, and I love, sometimes you're the adapter and sometimes you are the messenger of the idea. So if anybody is an ideas person, then listen to this advice, because I think this is it, because you can't hoard them all.
Yeah.
Right. And I think as you hoard them all, it slows actually the stream.
Yeah.
You kind of get jammed up with all the things.
Yeah,
Whereas I feel like one of the reasons, and I think probably is you as well, because you're this amazing channel for these incredible ideas, is just simply because you allow them to flow and you give them purpose. So whether they're put in a book for that I'm going to get to, or whether that is in your book for, you know what, that would be so great for someone else. And that is cool. And I mean, like, I can't even help but walk into a business and have like a bazillion ideas for that business. Exactly. You know, like, or the minute that I'm coaching somebody, I'm looking under the lid and I'm like, oh, they could be doing this and this and this and this. And it's like, it's just, they just multiply these ideas. So I love that you're a real ideas person. I want to talk now a little bit about mindset, because mindset, I think a lot of people are, you know, online, it's a real buzzword. You got to get your mindset right and all the things, right? And I think it gets lost in translation. It's one of those buzz phrases that get lost in translation. Because for me, mindset is really about my attitude on how I approach things. And then also my willingness to look at my own shit. So it's like that combination of the two. And one of the things that I really admire about Bushra is how open and honest you are about your entrepreneurial journey, but also as well about some of the things that are really, quite frankly, sucktastic about the online world. Let's just call it like it is. Tell us a little bit about that, because your attitude, I love it. I mean, it gives me life when I see that you are not willing to let someone else come along and diminish your light in any way, shape or form. So you've got a very special folder. Would you like to tell our listeners about that?
So a folder called Stink Bombs. And the stink bomb folder has every hate note, every racist comment, every you know, attack on my appearance, my personality, my lineage, anything at all. So I just keep them there, just to remind myself that I am bigger than those things and they don't mean anything. But before I talk about that, I'm just going to go back to, because you made a really interesting point, and I love that. You said mindset is about, yes, it is about knowing that you're worth so much more and not letting life derail you or people derail you, but also um, seeing your own bullshit. So that is something that I think a lot of people, so the mainstream talk about mindset, I feel is a little bit flawed. And the reason it's a bit flawed is because if we look at life as, you know, all rainbows and unicorns and all is good, and we should always just be happy and everything is working out just fine, and we don't need to do anything else, I think that in itself is a problem, because you need to be willing to take a step back and see, okay, why is this happening? So I will give you an example. Actually give you two examples. So the first example is obviously when someone randomly just decides, happens to me all the time. I get emails, or I got an email where someone said, I don't understand a word with your accent. Then another one just said, I think 3 months ago, she said something like, your accent disturbs my inner peace. Then there was another one who said, what was it? Yeah, I don't understand a word you're saying when you talk so much. Do you have something with a little bit less talking? And I was like, get in line. There are so many other people asking for things with less talking. That's not going to happen. So, you know, I've gotten a comment that said, what was it? Shut up, you Indian gypsy fuck. I mean, I've gotten them all.
Oh my goodness.
And the thing is, when you get something like this, obviously that used to happen to me. I used to be like, oh my God, you know, why am I even doing this? Why am I kind of exposing myself to such hatred and such racism and such weirdry? Why can't I just be my small thing and just be in my small like bubble? Why do I have to put myself out there? And the thing is, I realized that I'm not doing it just for myself. Every time I show up with my weird accent, with my Indian gypsy face, with my whatever it is that people think is wrong with me, when I do that, I'm showing possibility to others. So anyone who looks at me, they don't just look at me and be like, oh, that's Bushra who's doing her thing. No, they look at me and they think, oh, if she can do it, then I can too. And really, that is what keeps me going, and that's what makes it exciting for me to also respond to them. So that said, when I get comments like this, I publicly humiliate them, which is awesome, which is so much fun, because the thing with keyboard warriors and the thing with trolls is that they would not say something like this to someone's face, but because of the fact that they're anonymous on the internet, they can do whatever they want. So I have kind of created this culture of responding to them openly, calling them out on their racism, calling them out on their hatred, on their, you know, the fact that they're trolling. So I have been very vocal about it. However, there is a caveat to this. Sometimes there might be a situation where maybe it is something that you need to consider. So I give you a very specific example. At the height of the BLM movement, I actually was running an ad, and on that ad, it was like profile, and you couldn't tell, I don't know, I mean, it appeared as if if I was not brown, it appeared as if I was a white person. And the picture was where I was kind of punching, very funny picture, punching a statue. Now the statue was black. It wasn't the statue of a black person, but the statue was black. So I was kind of punching that statue. So instantly the ad started running and people were like, I can't believe someone would run something like this, a white person punching a black person. And I was like, okay, I get it. I mean, my instant reaction obviously was, this is not it. I am not white. I mean, my instant reaction was, I'm not white. This is not black. Don't make it about this. But I mean, I could see how it was perceived. So have the maturity to take a step and say, okay, wrong picture, wrong move, wrong time, shouldn't have done it. I'm sorry. So I took it down. Because in that moment, anything that I had said, it would have sounded defensive. It would have made the situation worse. So just an example like this, if something like this happens, a lot of the times, obviously, if someone is being nasty for no reason, you should call them out. But sometimes it makes sense to take a step back and think, okay, bad move, Bushra. It's okay. You made a mistake. Just, just take the corrective action. So I love what you said about that in the beginning. That's why it really spoke to me. But yes, mindset is about knowing that you have to show up the way you are and you have to do your thing. But it's also to, reassess and be like, oh, maybe there is a reason. However, it's a slippery slope, because sometimes people would say something like, when they've said to me, oh, I've had people say to me, have you considered voiceover artist? Because I don't understand what you say. So it could potentially lead me to think maybe I should hire a voiceover artist. So yeah, it's
no, never change, never change. I think, for me, I think everybody has their own things, right? Like everybody has their own quirks, right? Yeah. And things like that. So I have, even though I wasn't born in Scotland, I have quite a strong Scottish accent. And for a time I thought maybe I should try and speak the Queen's English, and and things like that. And we all have these ideas. Yeah. And I've got a friend of mine who is an amazing crystal expert. And again, his thoughts were very strong Scottish accent. Again, was like, I need elocution lessons. And I'm like, get a grip. But that time I'd been on the internet for about a couple of years at that point. So I was just like, just turn up as you are, like someone is going to love you just for you. Yeah. And I think it's really important that we turn up as our kind of authentic selves to as much as we can. And I love that you show up like that, but I also love that you're willing to share the vulnerability of sometimes it gets to you and you think, maybe I should look different, or maybe I should do this, or maybe I should, and I think that's just normal and natural to work through that. I also love that you're willing to own your shit when, like you realize like, not a great move. And I think this is one of the things is that I remember once listening to Lisa Nichols, who became really well known in The Secret, and she was the first African-American woman to float her company on the stock exchange. So amazing, inspirational lady. And she said, when you've got nothing to defend, nothing to deflect, and nothing to protect, then you are truly free. And I always use that a piece of advice.
Love that. I love
it's
that.
Beautiful. Like I always think, like, because if I feel like that mama bear going like this, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute, like, what am I defending, protecting, deflecting here? Is it my own shitty behavior, or is it actually something worth protecting, like my people? Like I get very mama bear over my people, but like all bets are off if somebody attacks one of my people. But
of course.
But it is right. But at that point, then I think, is it my own stuff? Is it because I'm not willing to concede? Is it because I'm not willing to look at maybe one of my aspects of what we call in my world the shadow self? Am I not willing to look at that piece of shadow of myself and examine that further? And I love that you were willing to hold that up and hold that truth up. And I think also as well, you lose nothing by apologizing. And I think that's an important thing. Yeah. And you can look like such an arsehole sometimes by just digging your feet in.
Yes.
And and then
I agree.
And then it literally costs you nothing. I remember Dr. Wayne Dyer saying, do you want to know the secret to ending any argument? And the whole audience was like, yes, and he said, you just smile and say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that is amazing. Because he says, then you can just go away and do your own thing.
Yeah. I love that. And it takes a whole new level of self-awareness to be able to say that. Because when we are throwing a tantrum, we know you're throwing a tantrum. I mean, I can tell that I'm throwing a tantrum. Then, if I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm throwing a tantrum, for example, or I'm just being bitchy for no reason, then I should also have the self-awareness to say, that was wrong, I'm sorry. And I say sorry to my kids all the time. I mean, if I'm PMSing or I snap at them for some reason, I can see their face deflate. And then I am quick to say sorry. And I don't just say sorry, I will say, I'm sorry, I was feeling a little bit off and I took it out on you and I should have done that, I'm sorry. And that's okay. I mean, your children need to know that they deserve the respect that you would give to someone else. I mean,
Yeah.
saying sorry genuinely shows your respect for the other person. So do it.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's amazing. So tell us, what is your biggest joy in what you do? Because I mean, you literally, watching you sometimes, I'm like, this lady is literally getting high off her own supply here. Like she is, and for me, that's a pleasure to watch, because I don't believe that there's enough people in this world operating at a level and consciousness of joy. And we can see that you definitely have joy in your work. So what brings you the biggest joy in your work?
Oh, I love that. So I know it sounds kind of nerdy, but for me, I think from an early age, the idea of coming across a concept, and then actually, and I think you do that well as in your business, but to me, that has always been something that's really exciting for me, that I take an idea that I came across in an article, in a book, in whatever, and I read like a crazy person. I mean, read all the time. So to take that idea and to actually translate it in a way that is not only understandable for people, but also link it to real life circumstances, that alchemy to me is just like, it gives me a whole new emotional high. So that's why I said, when I read, so I've read about 400 plus books on psychology. I'm crazy. But I don't just read the book. I would highlight the book, I take notes from those books, I put it in a journal, and then I think on that as to how it would translate into real life, and then sharing that with people. And that's why I'm literally on, if you've been on some of my webinars, I'm literally bouncing on the seat when I'm sharing those things, because I'm so excited. I'm like, okay, I came across this thing, and now I'll show you how it translates into a real life actionable thing. So that really, and right now the topic for me is persuasion. I've been doing that for the last 6 years, but it could be anything. It could be anything. The sense of gratification that you get from taking like a theoretical concept and translating into an actionable advice that works for real life is unbelievable. That is such a high for me.
I love it. I love it. And it's beautiful that you find the joy in it and that you're willing to express it, because I think with work, we, especially as women, and I know I've men in the $1 million experiment as well, but I feel especially as women, we have this tendency of like, work's got to be hard somehow. It's got to be like, it's got to suck, it's got to be difficult, it's got to be hard. And I love when I see entrepreneurs that bring like high levels of joy into what they do, because I had a very big burnout, and so my first earlier businesses was all worked from the energy of like, it's work and it's got to be hard. And then I had my burnout and thought like, hey, there's just got to be a different way to do things. And then I built this business I'm in right now, which I was really committed to building it from an energy of joy and an energy of ease and flow. And so those are, I call them my computer, my ease, joy, and flow. Will it bring me ease? Will it bring me joy? Will it bring me flow?
Oh, I love that.
And I ask myself that, like, and then I don't do it. I don't do it if I get a no on those 3 questions, because then what's the point, right? You know, like it's not gonna, those energies are not gonna show up later just because you made it, you know, like they're got to be there from day one. So I love that. And I love that you show up in such a big way, and you seem like you are the freaking Duracell bunny, you know, like endless energy. But I think that, I don't know if you would agree with this, I'm kind of leading this question, but I don't know if you would agree with this, that it's easy to have endless energy when you're in that expansive energy field.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I hear this all the time, and I have a standard response. People will be like, so what, how'd you get so much energy? I was like, I take magnesium. So I used to joke about this, but really, it's not so
Seriously,
far from the
take
truth.
your magnesium.
Take your magnesium. But it's not so far from the truth, because you're right. When you're enjoying, when you're having fun, I mean, okay, you can fake enthusiasm, but it kind of fizzles out after a while. You see all of those talk show hosts, you can see that they're not as excited as they seem to be, and you can read through that. So yeah. I have canceled live streams, I've canceled webinars, because I knew that if I would get on that webinar, if I would get on that live stream, I would have to fake the energy. And that was not worth it, because my people can read through it. You can read through it. So sometimes you're feeling off for no reason. And I always tell people, if you're feeling off for no reason, jump on a live stream, you instantly get a hit of energy, because it's just something about being in front of the camera. Doesn't work for everyone, but it works for me. But sometimes you know that no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to bring out that level of energy. It's really hard to fake it. So, I have done that sometimes. That said, if you're enjoying it and if your audience is receptive to whatever you're sharing, it's just natural to have energy. I mean, it's just, you don't even have to try. So a live stream, I feel, is a really good tool, is a really good pick me up, magnesium, live streams, and a cup of coffee. So that's that's what I would say.
Christmas life hacks. I love that, and it's true. Yeah, and it's I find for me, my energy can dip when I'm not serving.
Yeah.
And so that's why the live stream for me works every time as well. It bounces my energy right back up, and now you get reminded of, this is why I'm here. This is why I was put on this planet. This is the good stuff. And then I open my mouth and it just starts flowing through me. And I'm like, and I will always get somebody that will write in the comments, oh my God, I needed to hear that. And
I love that. So you know that,
yeah, it is. It's coming. I believe sometimes that greatness is often channeled through us. Beautiful. That we're just a conduit of it. It's not really, it's not really that some people are really, really great. And because I think we all have the capacity for greatness, but we are the conduit for it more. And that's actually a concept that I read about Roman times. I want to share this with you because I want to see what you make of this, actually, because I'm a bit of a nerd too, and I love to geek out to like ancient stuff. I love the origins of language and things like that.
Oh,
but the Romans had this idea. Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? It's all like, I can get really into it. So, but the Romans had this idea that nobody was a genius. There was no geniuses. Genius was an energy that visited you if you were open and available for it. And that you became the conduit and the channel for genius. And so genius was actually like a spark of divine energy that you would be like, no one was a genius. So like Albert Einstein, for instance, he wasn't a genius. He was a conduit for genius energy.
I love that.
Isn't it? Like, oh my God. So when I heard this, I thought, wow, this is really cool. And I started to see it in many different other things. That, when I look at people, for instance, like the Dalai Lama, for instance, right? Like he has made himself a conduit for compassion. And, if you've ever had the privilege of being in that energy, it's all you feel. It's so there. And I realized that we can be these conduits for different types of energy, including genius. And it's all available to us in the field of infinite possibilities. It's all available to us. And I think, both you and I are obviously clearly massive conduits for ideas. They come and visit us, and you're right, you have to honor them. And they visit us often. They're like, woohoo, the party is over here, like, and we're like, okay, writing them down, doing what we can with them so that we can be that conduit for the idea and things. And I love, this idea that the good energies can be separate to us, but available to us. What do you think of that concept? Do you like it? I
love this concept. I mean, I've thought about this. I was like, whenever people say, oh, so and so is so smart and so is so whatever, and I always say, I was like, I feel like we all have the same intellectual capability. However, your intellectual capability could be harnessed into something bigger, or it could be diminished based on your circumstances. Again, I come from a country where people live on less than $2 a day. So I would never be arrogant enough to say everyone has the same possibility. Everyone can do whatever they want to do. You can be whatever you set your mind to, because that's not true. I mean, I am what I am because of a certain set of circumstances. And if I was not born in that household, if I did not have those parents, if I had not, all the things that led to it, I might not be here today. So yeah, I would not be ever so arrogant to say that everyone can be whatever they want to be, but I do believe that everyone has the same intellectual ability. And like you said, it's such a mind-boggling but interesting concept that maybe genius visits all of us. And some open the door, and some are like, I'm too busy go away or whatever. And the genius is like, okay, whatever, you're lost. But it's such a cool concept, because I do believe that we are born with the same intellectual ability, but different ways to deal with it.
And express it, yes. So let's just talk a few before, because we've got 3 questions from our audience that we're going to put you through. They're really lovely questions, but let's talk a bit about your numbers beforehand, because you are now a $1 million business, or a multiple $1 million business. Now, you started in 2014, that's right?
Yeah.
And we're recording this in 2020, but it'll go out in 2021. So that is 6 years, really.
Yeah, 6 years.
Which is amazing. I think a lot of people, this is one of the things, so I want to talk about 2 things actually. There's just one thing's just popped into my head here, but I want to, one of the things is, I feel that people try things for like 5 minutes and then they don't, and then they're like, oh, it's not working, right? Yeah. And we talked about that earlier, that it was okay to let go of stuff that wasn't working, but we also talked about the container of giving yourself a good amount of time to actually try something properly out.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. Now, this tremendous growth that you've had in just 6 years, I mean, literally, if we look back at our last 6 years in life, like, how many people can look back and think, oh, well, everything changed in that time. Many of us look back and maybe the same shit, different day. And I think that it's, if we really commit to something, which you clearly have done in your business, in the beginning, it was all a big experiment, but then, once you saw the proof for the concept, you were like, I'm putting all my chips on Bushra here. I'm going to go all in. All my chips are here. And then you went all in. This is the kind of explosive growth that we are hoping to create within the community of building millionaires in a year. What would be your top tips for literally, like, what do you think like they need as a bare minimum? Say they're an entrepreneur. So I know I'm making this question difficult, but like, say they're an entrepreneur, like, what would be the top things that you think would be really essential for them to create $1 million year in themselves?
So, okay. So again, take a step back. So I did not quit my day job until I had already made my first million. And I quit in 2016. So I was way beyond that point, but I still wasn't sure whether the business is going to survive, because, always have the self-doubt. And if I were to give you like one big tip, so the reason I shared this is because I want you to know that I had very limited time. I had, my kids were smaller. Now they are older. They're more self-sufficient. So my kids were tiny. I was still working in the corporate consulting gig. So because I had limited time, I would say my very, very best tip for
did you
anyone.
make your first million from that broom closet as well? Because you had this.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I've got to get a picture of Tara of that closet, because that was so inspiring to me, that you had like minimal space, that you were literally running your business. So listen, guys, you can make $1 million from a closet.
Yes,
so
you can.
got no
Absolutely. Actually, no, you can actually make 5 from a closet, because I stayed in that closet up until 5 plus. So the reason I share this is because I had limited time, so I had to really prioritize what I should do and what I shouldn't do, because I also had to feed the children, keep them alive. So I would say my biggest tip is to do something every day. And that something every day is not browsing Facebook. So I remember I used to have 2 spots on my calendar, 10 minutes in the AM and 10 minutes in the PM. And those 10 minutes, remember, this was when I did not have my own audience. I had very small audience. I was just starting out. So that 10 minutes in the morning and the 10 minutes in the evening, that was a bare minimum that I had to do. I mean, even if I don't do anything else all day, that 20 minutes I had to give. And what I did in those 20 minutes was 3 things. Either I would go in a Facebook group and start a conversation, or I would support a conversation, or I would complete a conversation. So this is how I looked at this. I used to call it topic takeovers. So if you want to take over the topic that you want to be known for, in my case, it was persuasion, then you should be actively looking for conversations anywhere on the internet that are happening about your topic, and go on and either start a conversation, support a conversation, or complete a conversation. Just that. That's the bare minimum that I used to do every day. And that would be my biggest tip for anyone who's trying to kind of take over a topic. So you could go in a Facebook group and you start a conversation about persuasion, or you could go in a Facebook group and start looking at people who are asking questions about how to be more persuasive, how to close better, how to have better conversions, how to whatever results that you're promising. Support that conversation, share articles, share tips, or complete the conversation. So she's asking for tips, give her the tips, and move on. Just 10 minutes. So I used to go and start a timer for 10 minutes, go into those communities. I actually also did something where I set up a Google alert for my topics. So if anywhere on the internet, if anyone is having any conversation about my topic, I would get a Google alert in my email. I would go to that blog, I would go to that YouTube video, I would go to that, whatever that place is, and actually engage in the comments. So at a bare minimum, if you don't do anything else, first of all, commit to doing something every day. And when I say every day, I do mean the weekend, which I know is not the advice that people want, but try to do something every day. And at a bare minimum, try to start, complete, or support conversations happening around your topic.
Amazing. I get told in the early days of my business, I got told, like, people used to always say to me, Joanna, you're everywhere. And I was literally doing those things. I was having those conversations, but I was having those conversations where my ideal client was, right? And so it gave the illusion that you are literally everywhere, like everywhere I am, like every group I'm in, you pop up, you know? And it was like, but I also kept it tight on the conversation thing, right? Because there's many things that we can help with and many things that we can do, but you know, like if you keep it tight to what you want to be known for, that's such a great tip. Because that will, you know, then you will start to attract, and people will start to see your name popping up and oh, there's that chick again, and oh my god, that's some great advice again, and you know, you get known for bringing in great advice. So we are just about to wrap up here, but we've got 3 questions from our audience. So I've got a big long list of questions here, but we're going to pick 3. So Isaiah Bell Ishwar is saying, did the shift happen fast or incrementally? So did you find the shift to $1 million happen fast, or did it happen incrementally?
No, it didn't happen fast. Absolutely, it did not happen fast. I think because again, like I said, my first goal was 10K. Then I set the next goal. I was really hesitant. I was like, okay, I'm gonna set a goal for 100K. Let's see how that goes. I wasn't sure it would go anywhere. And then I didn't even set a goal for $1 million, to be honest. I just kept doing my thing. So I was focusing less on the outcome and more on the input, because I always say your control is only on the input. Your control is not on the outcome. So stop trying to control what you can't control. I mean, in management, there are 2 concepts. There is the controllable factors and uncontrollable factors. Too many people try to focus on the uncontrollables. Focus on the controllables. Your focus is on the input. So I literally only focused on the input. I didn't focus on the output at all. And the output just took care of itself, but absolutely did not happen overnight. No.
And do you know how I say that in my communities is focus on the service and the rest, and then the universe serves you. So if you focus on, like, literally focus on the output, focus on your service, and then the universe serves you. And it's like, oh my God, I love it. I love it. So, okay. So Michelle Wordsworth wants to know, what was the biggest game changer for you that created the biggest shift and therefore the biggest success in your business? So what was the biggest game changer?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Okay, so I love that. I love that question, because it really made me think, and I had to kind of do an analysis of which is so I would say my biggest thing that really contributed to everything was that I did not focus after the initial trial where I was like, list building, because every guru is telling me, build your list, build your list. I realized that that's such a stupid advice, because I was attracting people who were literally freebie hunters. So I would say my biggest shift in business happened when I started focusing on building a list of buyers instead of building a list of freebie hunters, which means that from the get-go, every single thing that I do, my purpose is to get people to buy as soon as possible. And it doesn't matter how big or small the payment is. What matters is that people open their wallets for you, because if they open it once, they will keep opening that over and over again. Because the easiest sale, and that's something that I had written on my closet door when I was still working in the closet, the easiest sale you will ever make is to an existing buyer. The easiest sale you will ever make is to an existing buyer. So please build a list of buyers. Stop focusing too much on list building, because then you will have a list of thousands of people like I had in the beginning, and I had to delete them all, who are just on your email list for the freebies. And we are not running a fan club, we're running a business, damn it. So please focus on building a list of buyers. I think that shift in energy, that shift in perspective changed everything for me.
Awesome. So next question comes from Ruby Coop. She asks, what is the best piece of advice that you have been given?
Oh God, I came across this. I can't even credit who that person is, but I have shared this before. I love it. And it worked really well when I was in corporate, but even now, and it was a quote that I came across. So I'm going to share two. I'm sorry, I'm not going to share one. So the first one is, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. And that really spoke to me, because in the corporate consulting world, everyone is trying to, go for bigger and better. And in the online space, you will see people who are, bringing more fancy clothes and fancy vacations and fancy yachts. And I'm like, you know what, I can totally compete on that, but I don't want to, because even if I do win that rat race, I'm still a rat. I'm still trying to win against something. So you know what? I'm not even going to bother. I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to show up in my closet. I'm going to wear my regular $10 top. I don't care. I don't want to compete with this. These things do not bring me joy. So I'm going to do things that actually bring me joy. So that's really, I would say that's my best piece of advice. Seriously, I came across it. It changed my life.
You're still a rat. Yes, it's so true, isn't it? It's like, I think, yeah. And I mean, one of the things that I'm really trying to get across in the $1 Million Experiment is that it is your internal world that is going to shift your external world. And if, and that whole idea of running in that rat race is all external. Yeah. And at the end of the day, yeah, you might be top of the heap, but you're still a rat. You know what I mean? Like, why not? And I love that, like, I'm going to focus on my joy. I'm going to focus on what brings me joy, which I think is really, I believe that joy is always going to be in the ballpark of abundance, because joy is from source energy. Source energy only knows abundance. So when you start focusing on your joy, you start focusing on the things that make you feel high on life. Yeah. You're literally sitting right next door to all of your money, like everything, like the connection to that money. And I love that you have just, I got there in a very spiritual way. And I love that you just got there being you, which is really beautiful without actually needing the spiritual explanations of it. So I have so enjoyed this conversation. I literally keep you on here for another hour, because I have loved.
It was wonderful. It was so wonderful.
So thank you so much, Bushra. And we are going to make sure in the show notes that where they can find you and everything. Give listeners a quick where they can find you right now, and then make sure that you click the show notes so that you can get everything, all things Bushra, and join her world.
Oh my God, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I don't really, like I said, I don't do, I don't do like spiritual, mindful conversations, but this is so much fun. I think I should do it more often. It was a lot of fun. So thank you so much for having me. I always tell people, just Google me, because A, it sounds cool when you say, just Google me. And also because I don't have any inappropriate pictures of me on the internet, so you can safely Google me. But if you want to see my website, I have the persuasionschool.com and the persuasionrevolution.com. Check them out. And if you are interested in persuasion, then I'm your girl.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for having me.